Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, prenatal yoga teacher training, we'll be going over all the props that you need for your prenatal yoga class. So prenatal yoga is prop intensive because when your body starts to change, grow a little bit bigger, your students will need more support in all of the yoga poses. Okay, some students will use a prop, some won't. But what I would do is make sure that you set up the room so the students have a wall next to them, maybe a wall at the back of their mat that they can put their foot against for warrior two or hold for any of the harder poses if they're losing balance, especially when they're later in their pregnancy and their center of gravity is a bit off. I would also set up 2 sets of blocks for each mom, a blanket, a yoga strap, okay, and a bolster. So my bolster is a bit small, but I would recommend the bigger the better for bolster, especially for Shavasana. Okay, so how do we use some of the props? So the blanket is pretty intuitive. You use it as a blanket. You use it as a blanket for Shavasana. Um, or you also use the blanket for padding of the knees when you're on all fours. You can also use the blanket underneath the palms if their wrists are hurting. So usually your wrists will hurt or they have a carpal tunnel type situation. They can either use fists or put the palm on the blanket because bending the wrist 90-degree angle could be something that some of the moms don't feel so good in. So you can put a blanket underneath their palm there so it doesn't have to bend so much. And then the bolster is primarily used for Shavasana. Okay, there's a couple poses that you could use the bolster with. That would be maybe child's pose. So maybe mom's belly is really big now. And so she'll need some cushion on her chest and forehead for child's pose. You can also use it for puppy pose, which is kind of like downward facing dog, but on your knees and forearms. So it looks something like this. It has more surface area for the mom to hold on to and rest their forearms and elbows. Another way that they could use the bolster is in pigeon pose. So if you do pigeon pose in your class, you can have the bolster here for them to rest their head on. And most of the restorative poses will use the bolster. So you can go like this. All right. What other? Oh, I will show you Shavasana pose with the bolster later. And then you'll also need 2 blocks. The blocks will help each mom get up and down. Basically, blocks are used to bring the floor closer to the mom, especially when up and down kind of makes them a bit dizzy. So bringing the bringing the block closer to you or closer to the mom is very helpful. And majority of the standing poses, you can use a block to give support. So I'll give you an example of how to use the blocks for helping the mom get up and down. So if you're on all fours, you'll hold on to the block, step 1 foot to the outside of the block, step the other foot to the outside of the block, and they can use the block to rise all the way up. Another way is for halfway lift. If you're doing prenatal sun salutations, you can use a block to halfway lift. There, the floor is a little higher. And for side angle pose, Parsvottanasana, right hand will come to the block, left arm can reach up and over the ear or up towards the sky, or you can bring the block to the highest setting, okay, up to the mom. For Trikonasana, you can also use the block. And for Malasana, if you're doing pelvic floor exercises in your class, you can have the moms sit on the block, especially if you're here for a long time. Also, hero's pose or seated meditation, they can also sit on the block or bolster to tilt the pelvis a little bit more forward. Okay, so that kind of looks like this. I'll turn to the side here. Looks like this. And what's another one that you can use? Oh, supported bridge. This one's really good for the lower back for the moms. Lifting the pelvis up, placing the block right underneath their sacrum here. For supported bridge, they can also lift the knees and do knee circles for a nice back massage. Okay. And also remind your moms to always turn to the side to get up. So there's not that much pressure in the abdominals here, especially with baby being there. And then I'll show you some Shavasana poses with the props. Oh, before I go there, I will say for the strap here, you can use the strap around the balls of the feet for forward fold. So moms will have their legs a little bit wider and they can forward fold with the strap if the toes are too far. They can also use the strap for sideline stretch. So usually when you lay on your back, you lift your leg up and you put the strap on. But for prenatal, we don't lay on our backs too much because it'll kind of cut the blood and oxygen from that vein in the back to your baby. So especially if you're further along in your pregnancy, so maybe you'll lay on your side and then you'll do one of the hamstring stretch with the strap like this. Inner thigh stretch, hamstring stretch with the strap like that. You can also use a strap for interlaced hands behind the back. Strap will come here. Maybe you go forward fold with the strap. Archer arms. If you can't quite clasp the fingers behind the back, you use a strap. And then we'll move to our Shavasana pose. So our Shavasana pose for all the moms, we'll use all the props. So I would recommend all the moms to do a Shavasana where they're not lying on their back. Okay, for the reason that I just said before, they have a vein back there that brings all the nutrients, oxygen to the baby. Sometimes when you lay on your back too long, they get a little dizzy. But as my training says, always tell the moms to listen to their body. So maybe one mom feels great on their back, and so you just leave them be. So you'll place the blocks here. One block will be higher than the other. Then you'll place the bolster on top, so it's like a slide. The moms will bring the straps around the ankles and underneath the knees. And the reason for this is so that the knees don't splay out too far. Okay, then you would wrap the strap around and tie it. And then the mom will lay back onto their little ramp here for their Shavasana. Then they can also place the blanket so that they're nice and warm any way that they like. Another Shavasana pose with the props would be lying on your side. Okay, so it's recommended that the moms lie on their left side. Okay, because I think all the organs are on the right, are on the left. And so laying on the left side gives it more space so it doesn't kind of collapse down on you. So you'll place the pillow here, bolster if you'd like, or the moms can use their arm. Okay, and then if you have two bolsters or two blankets, one blanket can go in between the legs, okay, or you can put the bolster in between the legs and then reverse that and use the blanket as a pillow, or you just ditch the blanket and you want to use your arm as a pillow, that's great too. And then you can also place the blanket on top of you. And that is the most basic ways you can use props in your prenatal class. Of course, there's many poses that can incorporate the blocks. If there is a certain pose that you want to teach in prenatal yoga, that you want to know, how do I use the props to support the moms to do that pose? Feel free to leave a comment or ask me a question in the comments. But if you want an in-depth training in more detail and our virtual manual. The course is online. It's at a discount right now, so you can nab that at my website. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. And until then, I will see you in the next training video.